Take heart. Get up. He is calling you. In the name of God, creator and maker of all. Amen. Take heart. Get up. He is calling you. Hands hauled him forward. He couldn't count how many. It was cold where he'd been sitting alone, back stiff against the numbing stone of someone's house. How cold he didn't realize until those hands like hooks held him under the arms and hauled him forward. A hallway of warm hands compels him with tugs at the forearms, perhaps the gentle pressure of a child's palm on the small of his back. He'd have never found his way to Christ alone. Take heart, Bartimaeus. A tightness in his hips protested, and it did take a minute to find his feet, numb, all pins and needles, to negotiate the 3 steps down out of the cold stone shade and into the spreading warmth. But he felt the sun on his face for the first time in years. Its warmth had a color, a kind of blood orange, suffusing slowly beneath his lids. 2 blown coals, and Christ's the breath that coaxes the glow from ash gray. Part of him was still shivering, but the question came like the sudden opening of an oven door. What do you want me to do for you? What happened next, friends, set his soul on fire. He followed him on the way. Today, friends, we meet Bartimaeus. Bartimaeus, the last person Jesus will heal in a short gospel crammed with healings. We are on the way out of Jericho, headed towards Jerusalem. Bartimaeus, son of Timaeus, is the only person Jesus heals who is given a name in this gospel. And he follows Jesus. Perhaps all the way to Jerusalem. We don't know for sure. Perhaps his healing, his naming Jesus as Son of David, is one reason the crowds in the holy city will at first be so thick and so adoring. And perhaps he will see Bartimaeus with his own restored vision, all that is to follow. The sea of waving palms, Jesus washing the disciples' feet, Pilate's interrogation, the jeering crowd, the scourging, the spikes, the raising up on Calvary. Perhaps he will see for himself that rolled back stone and the abandoned linen wrappings. Perhaps he will eventually be one of the many to whom the risen Christ appears. The wounds still visible, but mysteriously canceled, failed. Perhaps the one who regains his sight cannot help himself and wants to see it all. Wouldn't you? Perhaps. That's knowledge we have not been given this morning in Mark's gospel. But we do have these words from Jesus to the crowd. Call him here. Call him here. The crowd who have been shushing Bartimaeus turn quickly to supporters. Crowds can turn in an instant in the Gospels, can't they? Bartimaeus was not a man born blind. He had a memory of vision, knew what he was missing. Let me see again, he says. And he will see again. But it's not likely he will see in the same way again. On the way, we are told. Bartimaeus follows Jesus on the way. He hodos in Greek. Now, it can mean a route, but it's often understood as a mark of a manner, of a mode of being. He hodos, the way of Jesus, the way of love. And here's what we can see happening on this way of love this morning. A crowd can transform from censoring and sharp-elbowed and shushing to encouragement, support, solidarity, bearing another's burdens. And here's what else can happen on the way. Darkness can turn to light, marginalization to inclusion. So the questions this short, unforgettable story asks of us this morning are three. What have you been shown? Who helps you see? How will your way be different because of what you have been shown? Take heart, get up. He is calling you. You and me. You know, since earlier this summer, 2 groups have been meeting here bi-weekly on Sundays and Mondays. They have been together through our wider church's Sacred Ground curriculum. Sacred Ground is an 11-session program that uses films, articles, and 2 books to create a safe, respectful, faith-based dialogue on race and racism. It asks us to see American history, our own family histories. I have personally found Sacred Ground to be an invitation to see again, and to see with the support of others. In the depths of COVID, when I was working through this curriculum myself in my last parish, we were doing this on Zoom, compromised in a way. I was especially surprised, revised, by an interview with Noel Ignatieff, a man who had written a book called How the Irish Became White, an exploration of Irish and African-American relations throughout American history. The book touches on the New York draft riots at the time of the Civil War, all the way up to the advent of court-ordered busing in my own childhood. What I had not seen had never been taught explicitly in school or in family lore is that the Irish in America, my own maternal ancestors, had not been considered white by white Anglo-Saxon Protestant establishment types. Whiteness, according to Ignatieff, is in fact a complex and negotiable construct. And the Irish achievement of full whiteness, according to the author, came through a variety of means, including active participation in civil service and law enforcement, the Democratic Party, hard work, judiciously dropping the O before our ancestral surnames, and both in ways conscious and unconscious, buttressing a power structure in America that curtailed the flourishing and full enfranchisement of people with skins darker than our own. Teacher, let me see again. How the Irish became white is almost always a discussion flashpoint in Sacred Ground sessions. It generates heat and light. I think because many students, as I did, recognize its truth and see in it, often for the first time, a truth they've not yet been invited to acknowledge or explore. The President's apology this week to Indigenous people in America for policies that separated generations of children from their families and forced assimilation, is also an invitation or a challenge, depending on where you sit, to see again, to follow a new way. What you see, what you have been shown, is always an invitation to new life. New life out of death. When have you been blind to something? And when has a new vision, sometimes suddenly, immediately, says Mark this morning, of Bartimaeus' recovery, when has that bright, hot, immediate new knowledge set you on a new way? It can also come gradually, sometimes more gently. I've spoken with a couple of you in recent days about the death of Robert Finch. Robert Finch, for 40 years, has written about the natural world here on Cape Cod. He's known to many through reading his essays on WCAI over the number of years he's been working here. And he died several weeks ago. I was struck recently by, in the Boston Globe, words from his obituary, words he had shared in the year 2002 with a Globe reporter. Writing essays about Cape Cod, he once said, writing essays about Cape Cod helped him see the world in more expansive ways. I never really looked at nature deliberately before I lived here, said Finch. And then I lived here a long time before I started going to other places again. This is what he said to the Boston Globe. Quote, when I returned to my hometown in West Virginia for the first time in 15 years or so, it was a revelation. I realized that I was seeing that place with eyes I had developed on the Cape. I was suddenly aware of its geography, topography, watersheds. It's given me those eyes. Not a bad gift at all. The gift of new eyes. Not simply to see, but to see, in Finch's words, in a more expansive way. How do we see each other more expansively, more generously? Take heart. Get up. He is calling you.